Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Berkshire Pension Board on the 13th of October 2025. I'm Alan Cross and I'm Chair of the Board. This meeting is being held in person via Zoom and streamed live to the public on YouTube. Can I remind attendees that participation in the meeting indicates consent to the audio and video being streamed live and an acknowledgement that after the meeting will continue to be available in the public domain. We're not expecting the fire alarm to sound. However, if it does, please can I ask that we leave in an orderly fashion a rendezvous outside the library across the road. Firstly, it would be helpful if everyone introduced themselves so that anyone watching now or later is aware of who's in the meeting, the role they're undertaking. So I'm Alan Cross as Chair.
Good morning, I'm Nikki Craig and I'm an employer representative.
Good morning, I'm Kevin McDaniel. I am observing today's meeting with the intention of becoming an employer representative in due course.
Jeff? Jeff, I didn't hear that. Try again. You're muted.
Jeff Ford, member representative.
Arthur?
Morning, Arthur Parker, employer representative.
Julian?
Julian Curzon, employer representative.
Rachel Howard, Executive Director Resources and Section 151 Officer.
Martin Griffiths, Pension Administration Manager.
Philip Boyton, Deputy Head of Pension Fund.
Jo Thistlewood, Head of Pension Fund.
Mikey Lloyd, Democratic Service Officer and Clerk to the Board.
I request that meeting participants do not speak unless I specifically invite them to do so. Once I've invited you to speak, before doing so, if necessary, please restate your name and the capacity in which you're speaking as appropriate. If any individual attempts to disrupt the meeting, I'm able to use my powers in the Constitution to adjourn the meeting or have an individual removed. I'd also like to remind everyone that to improve our time effectiveness, please try to limit repetition of points or questions that have been raised. Where possible, put forward new points. We'll now move to start on the agenda items. Do we have any apologies for absence? I know we have.
Yes, Chair, we've had an apology from Neil Bullock.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Not expecting any. We have the minutes of our meeting, our short meeting on the 28th of August on page 9 of the agenda. No, we don't. We have it on a slightly earlier page than that. On page 5 of the agenda. Are we happy that those were a correct record of the meeting? Nikki, were they right with you?
I was absent.
Okay, Jeff's happy, I'm happy. Let's agree those. Trying to get back to. We next have the draft minutes, part 1 minutes, and whilst we're doing it, assuming nobody wishes to say anything particularly substantive about them, in our part 2 agenda, we have the part 2 minutes. I think I've had a glance through both of those, and they look like they reflect, what I recall of the meeting. It's possibly worth just noting that the committee didn't get through the entirety of part 2 and therefore had a subsequent meeting a couple of weeks ago, it feels like, sort of thing. I wasn't able to be at that, but I've seen the transcription of it, and that sort of that is sort of noted. And obviously, the committee will be tasked with approving those minutes at its next meeting in early December. So we note those. with the agenda, we've got to move on to the administration report. Who's introducing?
That will be me, Chair.
Thank you.
This is the administration report from the pension fund. It covers a slightly different period than we would normally have. So this is covering from June 25 until August 25. At future, we're looking to do a more 3-month, because some of this has already been covered in a previous report, but hopefully this will give you a snapshot of where we actually are currently. All the areas are covered on the contents, and I'll take the report as read, but I will just bring out a couple of points that I think is important to bring to your attention. We have continuing increasing numbers across the fund in all our areas of membership, whether it's deferreds, retireds or actives. We have a little bit of information there about our workloads and how the team is actually coping with them. We just wanted to make the board aware that we always try to ensure that all areas of our workloads are dealt with as promptly as possible, and we particularly understand and try to prioritise any retirements and death cases without neglecting any other areas of the work that we actually complete. The graphs covering our KPIs, I apologise once again, I've slightly got misplaced when it was converted to a PDF, but I am able to now give you the KPI totals in all categories for September, because those have been run since this paper was prepared for the meeting. So I'm very pleased to say that our starters, we had 99.76% completed within our timescale. Deceased cases were 100%, refunds were 100%, and our retirements were 97.8%. So all categories were over our 95% target and very close to being 100% in every category. So the team are really working very hard to meet the KPI levels that we actually set for them. We have a little piece there on recruitment. I think this is something I always mention when we have these meetings. Recruitment is obviously a big area of difficulty across the LGPS in general. I would like just to bring to the attention of the board, though, that we did have some successful interviews very recently, and we've appointed another trainee, and we hope to have appointed someone also with experience from another fund, which will desperately help the state that we're in at the moment. It will enable us to actually train a member, but also bring in experience as well. I'd also like to take this opportunity just to actually minute that we have a member of our team retiring at the end of the year, Sandra Rice. She was our deputy pension manager. She had moved into another role recently, but I think obviously from both Joe, Philip and myself, we'd like just to have it noted that she's done a wonderful job for the team and really appreciate all the contribution that she's made. Training and qualifications is the next item on the agenda here. I mentioned there that one member of our team had successfully completed their award in Pension Essentials. I can pleased to announce to the team that we've had another person that has now completed that since this report was written. So we now have 2 members of our team who successfully got this qualification. And we do have another member of the team who's taking the next level up, the certificate in local government administration. We're very keen to encourage all our team to take as much training as possible to increase their knowledge and share that knowledge with the rest of the team. Next item is about pension saving statements. This is a piece of work that the team have been working on recently. In particular, the deputy pension manager, I think some of you will have met at our last meeting, Barry. It's some information that we need to get out to all our members who potentially may have breached their annual allowance limits over the last 12 months, or at least make them aware that they're already using what we call a carry forward amount. And we need to make them fully aware that next year they may be coming to breach that amount unless they're careful with their pension savings. So we have got and contacted everybody who is breaching, which actually is a very small number. I think we had one member of our scheme, but we did have quite a few members that were at the level where next year it may be an issue for them. And we've communicated to them. And that's something we have to do by the end of the first week in October every year. The communications details are on there, something that we brought into our report from last year, from the last meeting, sorry, quoting the number of calls that we have, number of emails and incoming posts. Obviously, all that work is undertaken by the team, isn't necessarily moved into our tasks. So it's extra work on top of what we're doing normally. We've got details of the number of online activation keys that are issued. These are the people who then have a key that they can go onto our online portal in order to actually carry out calculations, etc. We've got some details of the number of people who have visited the website there between June and August, and the number of pension surgeries and presentations. We've then got a table that we're bringing for the first time, because I'm aware that at our last meeting, we had a query about how many hits we had on our website, and we were able to get a bit more information for you. And we've listed there the top 10 pages that are actually used by our membership. And we have two columns there within that table. So the number of views and the number of active users. So obviously we didn't have, for the first one, for example, we didn't have 7,701. We actually, people going in, we had 4,700. It just means that those people potentially went in more than once. So there's a breakdown of our pages and how much they're actually used by the members. Hopefully the board will find that useful, and we'll try and continue to provide that going forward. We continually monitor the makeup of our member self-service, and the graphs below on the following page give a breakdown. Hopefully we've taken out the members that we shouldn't have shown to you last time in this report, but there's an explanation of what the charts are actually showing you just before the charts. So we're showing dependents, pensioners, actives and deferred members in those charts, and we're showing how many in each age group are actually using the service in the second bar chart there. The numbers do continue to increase, and we're hoping they will continue to increase further on the introduction of our new self-service portal called Engage. Our technical team are working very hard to bring this in at the moment, and we hope to launch it before the end of the year. It offers much more facilities to our members, more things that they can actually do and change, and we can actually hope to upload documents on that rather than send them through the post. So we hope there'll be cost savings as well for the fund in using that new facility. We'll just need to encourage as many of our members as possible to use that, and we hope to be able to do so. We have a little bit of information about scheme employers and about submissions with iConnect. Always like to remind the board that even if we're not getting 100% submissions from any of our employers, that won't necessarily have a detrimental effect on anybody's benefits, because retirements, deaths and stuff are notified in a different way anyway. This is mainly hours changes, and therefore if we receive those slightly later, that isn't going to have an effect on benefits. We've got the reasons in there for RBWM and for West Berkshire. As far as our academies and others are concerned, it's less easy for us to give you an exact day and reason, because there are multiple academies and other employers, but generally it just means that we didn't quite get a return from them by our date. The next table gives the percentage of scheme employers who made payments within the deadline during June, July and August. So we've got the iConnect data across the fund, monthly contributions received in time, and also our monthly deficit lump sum payments received on time. So they're pretty high, and we are happy with those responses from our employers. Got a little bit about our compliments and complaints. We had one slight issue with shared cost AVC members at RBWM. but I believe that was rectified and sorted out, so we don't have any further concerns about that. And there are a number of compliments that we actually have noted there as well. We've had no breaches in the law fortunately, since our last meeting, so there's nothing to report to yourselves on that one. The valuation work, I'd like to assure you that that was completed and ready for the 2025 valuation, and that information was sent off to our actuary Barnet Waddingham. Item 2 on the agenda just covers our special projects. So we have the McLeod judgment, which we talk to you regularly about. We will be bringing the updated project plan to you at our next meeting. But we did comply with our annual benefit statements. All the information was provided to all members that we possibly could. Those that we couldn't send it to because of no regulations in place, hopefully it will be in place for them in August 2026. As far as our pensioner members, just so that you are all aware, we are currently working on ensuring that all our pensioners will have a rectification of their pensions by the end of the year. So they will have the correct amount of pension being paid into their accounts, and any money that they should have had will be paid with interest as well by the end of the year. Pension dashboard programme, that's something the scheme also continues to work on. We are working very hard to ensure that we're able to deliver on that. We had to be connected to what they call the ecosystem by this month, which we have done through our ISP provider, which is Hayward's, who also provide our admin system. And we will be given a 6-month notice by the Money Helper organisation to tell us when the first actual platform is available for our members to use. So we're expecting that to be later next year. So we will be ready to deliver at that point. There is a link in there. Hopefully you are able to open it if anyone's interested, that will actually show you all about what the dashboards are and how they work. And that's been provided to us. Regulatory updates, just a little bit there about inheritance tax changes. And that's really just for information only. It's not really affecting the fund at the moment because we're expecting some more updates by the Local Government Association. And when we receive those, we will inform the board. The last 4 bullet points under that section are some key changes that the LGA wanted government to make with regards to inheritance tax. But at the moment, they haven't definitely been signed off. So we are waiting for that, but we will come back to you with more information as soon as it's available. Thank you, Chair. That's the admin report.
Thank you, Martin. That's a quite comprehensive introduction. Comments and questions from board members? I've got 1 or 2 points I'll raise, but others come in first. Jeff, nothing. Nikki.
Thank you, Martin. One of the questions for me pertained to the table that you quite clearly put out about the amount of emails that we'd had in and then the amount of post that we'd had in. Just got to find the right page again now because I have to scroll backwards and forwards. It's like over, 1,190 bits of incoming posts indexed and on the bottom of page 7 of the report, page 29 of the pack. So with you putting engage in, do we think that that might reduce that going forward? Because obviously it's one thing to answer an email relatively quickly or a call, but a piece of paper that you then got to scan and get into the system. Is engage looking to reduce those levels, in which case to free up some more time to do other things? Thank you.
Yes, Nikki, I think what will happen with engage, our hope is that the system will enable us not to necessarily send everything out in post format and paper format. We don't send an awful lot anyway. A lot of it does go by email, but it will hopefully enable us to attach information, for example, retirement letters and forms to the engage system. Providing the members are registered to use it, they'll be able to get the information in that manner. And we'll be encouraging members to go that way and to actually use that system. So hopefully the number of bits of posts that we actually have coming in on a daily basis will reduce, but it has already reduced considerably over the years.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Yeah, thank you for the question, Nikki. Absolutely, what Martin says there is spot on. An item that is touched on as well in the next agenda item, communications policy. Point 3.1 talks about going paperless, the paperless policy. Member self-service, as it stands at the moment, does to a degree allow us to communicate as well as members to communicate with us through their portal. Engage further enhances the functionality around that, and we have evidence of that through testing, which is heavily ongoing at the moment. So straightforward answer is yes, Engage will push us on.
Thank you.
You're done. Martin, just some comments on the charts 5A, 5B, 5C. Is it possible to either add to the charts or just add an overall statement that in the quarter you've processed this number of them? Because contextually, that you've, you know, is it 99% but you only have 5 to do, or 99% and you had 5,000 to do? It's quite a different sort of thing. And you know, frankly, I don't have a sense of how many you process. Obviously, I know from the other chart how many we've got in.
Yes, Chair, I'm sure we can do it. We can ask our technical team to run off the number that we've actually got there. Certainly fill that into the report. Yeah, because I'm not sure I truly understand the total line in the bottom of each of the tables, what that's truly telling me. We will fill that into future reports. I'm sorry, I can't give you that figure now. No, but you know, when there's a number there, and I know this bit of it goes on to committee. You know, well, what you're trying to tell committee members there, sort of thing. Because if you're not telling me anything, I suspect you're not telling them anything either. Sort of thing would be my take on it. That paragraph you've got about recruitment, I just wondered when I read it whether you should sort of put recruitment, training and qualifications all in a section together. It felt like it needed a title separate from the charts before it, sort of thing. It's obviously a useful thing to say where you are on that. We can do that, certainly.
You know, where things are going. So just on the big table on page 30 about hits to the, so effectively the first thing, that the most used thing is people going on to see their own information, sort of thing. And that's anybody who's accessed My Pension Online and stuff about themselves, and it's understandable people doing that have perhaps looked more than once in a period, because you know you tend to be doing this when you're approaching pension or you're reviewing with somebody what's going on, and you know that sometimes necessitates more than one need to look at it. Just going forward to the scheme employer responses, you know, I note, you know, three of the larger employers were 1 to 5 days late. That's with the information, but I presume from the percentages of contributions, all the large employers were on time, and you've presumably got a process for keeping an eye on persistently late payers.
Yes. Yes, Chair. We do keep a record of anybody that obviously isn't providing us with the money within the precise date. So and we will chase that. We chase that up anyway routinely.
I mean, because obviously there's assuming it's not any of the major employers, only very small, but a small financial disadvantage to the fund in not receiving money on time. The last bullet point in the IHT section, I took that as meaning effectively the fund will land up in a similar position to banks and national savings, whereby basically somebody who's the executor of the estate, if there's inheritance tax to pay, can ask you to pay in HMRC on their behalf, so that you know, HMRC gets its money, because effectively you can't get probate on an estate till you have paid the inheritance tax. So, and you know, certainly many financial institutions won't release things until you've got probate.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, a lot of the concerns that the Local Government Association had was that a lot of this work was being put onto the funds to deal with, when they really didn't think it was a responsibility of the funds to pick that information up and deal with it, because it's very hard to get that sort of information particularly. So they really wanted to push it back on the individuals rather than the funds. But there are certain areas that obviously central government suggests that pension funds do deal with. So as soon as the local government association gets some feedback on which are the 4 or 5 last points, 4 points, bullet points there, and we'll obviously feed back and we'll action obviously whatever they ask us to do.
Thanks, Martin, and I agree with that, because you can't possibly know about the rest of any individual's estate other than the bits related to the pension, and they may have millions of pounds of other assets and therefore lots of inheritance tax due, or no other assets and therefore only the fund, and that might be, theoretically there might be something due, but if the fund doesn't take them over the limit, there won't be. Okay, I'm sort of, they were the main points I had on that. I'm not seeing anyone else indicating, so I think we can note that, and similar report goes on to committee with slightly less detail. Is that the plan?
Yes, obviously they'll see the board papers, but they'll have a slightly different report from admin, which won't contain as much detail as you would have seen in this one.
Yeah, I think the position is like us, we have access to their papers, but don't necessarily routinely see them, but they have access to our papers, so that's fine. Thank you. We go on to the updated policies in agenda item 6. Is Joe introducing or Phil?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, so picking up item 6A on the agenda, starting on page 37, you will find the governance updated policies paper. This provides 2 appendices. One appendix, Appendix A, being communication strategy statement, and Appendix B, pensions administration strategy statement. These last reviewed and approved by the Pension Fund Committee in September 2023. Usually revised and published following a material change to the local government pension scheme regulations. However, time for a refresh of these policies would be felt. First to note the huge input of Martin in the pensions administration strategy statement, and our colleague Joanne Brazier, our communications manager. So, starting with the communication strategy policy being on page 59. This has been refreshed in consideration of the pensions regulators' general code of practice guidance. So we looked at and incorporated parts of that to get ahead on any future changes that may be coming down the pipeline. It is, of course, a way of demonstrating best practice and demonstrating that the pension fund is well positioned to govern the scheme as a pension fund. Top 3 sort of updates. Formatting throughout the document has been updated, improving readability and overall presentation. There's new content linked into the pension fund's website, which was updated in the summer of 2024, and providing information about how we're looking to reach out to other scheme members, particularly in schools that are maintained within unitary authorities. On page 41 is the revised pension administration strategy statement. This has been updated to improve the structure, again, the readability of the document, making things easier to locate within the document, both for the pension fund and also other stakeholders, so employers and even scheme members. Endeavouring to simplify the language and presentation of the strategy, and setting out more clearly the aims and updated duties of the pension fund and our stakeholders. Now, particularly the pensions administration strategy has gone out for a period of consultation, starting on the 6th of October and running up to and including the 31st of October. We have already had one scheme employer get in touch with us around the SLA, service level agreement pension fund has set itself for dealing with employer estimate requests. We have acknowledged that and assured them that we will review their comments and see whether any of our other scheme employees in the first instance raise a similar question with us.
Is that a council or a smaller employer?
That was a trust.
A trust, okay.
Yeah. So essentially, we're asking for board members' agreement to both strategy statements and recommending that they are put forward to the Pension Fund Committee for approval and adoption at the meeting to be held on the 8th of December. Happy to take any questions.
Presumably subject to any further amendments you choose to make in the light of comments from employers, if you're consulting with them.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, of course. We'll take every comment that we receive on board and acknowledge and justify reasons why and why not.
That's yeah. Okay. I mean, just a general comment with these policies, and there's someone up here in other places here. It might be helpful to highlight where changes have been made. I don't mind don't worry about formatting changes that things that improve, but just more changes of substance sort of things, so we can clearly see. And I don't think track changes is necessarily the way to do it, because you then sort of see, but just see what bits new and what bits are where so that can be helpful when you're reading, because I'm conscious we've got a large swathe of policies. We update them on a timetable, and being clear what we've updated and changed, and can then focus our time on the updates that are being proposed, rather than necessarily reading that which is already good, sort of thing, would be a suggestion I'd make. Are there other comments from others? Jeff is shaking his head, Julian's shaking his head, Arthur's not indicating, Nikki's not indicating. And just on the school-specific surgeries during school holidays, I presume that's what staff in schools have asked for?
Yeah, so the feedback that we've received, having reached out to unitaries in general, the schools have come back to say school working hours, understandably inconvenient. So we've looked at our timetable and we've accommodated and reached out well in advance with dates and times of when those school surgeries are planned for in the school holidays. Yeah,
which I presume you can accommodate resourcing because of, because I'm conscious staff sometimes needs holiday during school holidays for understandable reasons.
And this is where we've been able to sort of soak up the advantage of Teams and Zoom.
Yeah.
So we can hold these surgeries remotely.
Yeah. Good. Well, I was happy with where that was going from my sort of take on it. So thank you for those updates. And I think we've done 6A. There's then 6B, a verbal update on progress on Fit for the Future. That definitely is due, I imagine.
This is a very good meeting. It's taken half an hour for me to actually switch my microphone on, so that's really good. Valuing this one. So thank you very much, Chair. This is just a quick verbal update on the actions that we identified as a result of the Fit for the Future consultation, which is now being embedded in the Pension Schemes Bill 2025, going through parliamentary process at the moment. A document was presented to you at your July meeting, which set out for each of the 3 key areas of the Fit for the Future consultation, the areas where actions were required. So just a really quick verbal update. I didn't want to write a report because a lot of things haven't happened yet. A lot of things are in process, but just literally to give you a quick update. Kevin, apologies, I didn't send you the link to the previous paper, but I will make sure that you're aware of what's going on shortly. So 3 areas that were under the Fit for the Future consultation was LGPS pooling, so government changes to the pooling structure. Members will be aware, I hope you may remember, that 2 pools were disbanded by central government, and the funds for those pools were looking for revised homes for their investment pools. Very pleased to confirm that 5 funds from the previous Brunel pool, which is in the southwest location, have confirmed for LPPI. There is another one who's decision has not yet been made public, but we're not allowed to see where we are. So there will be at least 8 funds in the revised LPPI investment pool. Officer meetings have been set up to start introducing ourselves to each other, the new partners, and also to start working forward on how these changes are going to be implemented. I've been working with Rachel as Section 151 officer and Elaine Brown as monitoring officer to make sure that all the documentation that comes through is appropriately documented and relevant to us. And Pension Fund Pension Fund Committee at its meeting on the 15th of September agreed in principle that RBWM as administering authority for the pension fund should pursue shareholding in the new organisation. A paper will be taken to full council in November to get full council to make that decision, as it is RBWM who will be the shareholder in their capacity as administering authority for the pension fund. Very complicated, lots of people involved, but we're trying to make sure that we do it properly, hence the involvement of Rachel and Elaine to ensure that we're doing it properly. Other than that, then things shouldn't change too much for us in pooling. Opportunities obviously from the new partner funds coming in may expand the investment portfolios that we're entitled to, but that's something that will be discussed, and the revised structure for that is required by central government to be operational from the 1st of April 2026. So very short-term deadlines, but technically from our perspective, it shouldn't make any difference to the service we receive from LPPI, just maybe broadening opportunities which we'll work through in future. So that's the first aspect of Fit for the Future. The second aspect was around local investment and working with combined mayoral authorities, if they exist, to identify local priorities and declare a target for local investment priorities and objectives for local investment, what we are trying to get to. Haven't done anything on that yet. The intention for that is that there will be a workshop held for committee, board, panel, officers, whoever is interested, sometime hopefully in February, to look at what does local mean for us, how can we start it forward. My intention is to bring some experts in from other local authority pension funds who have already done this, to get their view on where they started from, how they started, how they got from where they started to where they are, how we can learn from their experience, and we're working with LPPI. So as soon as that workshop is arranged, I'll make sure that everybody gets relevant invitations. Is probably more of interest to the local pension board is around governance with new policies, updated reporting standards, changes to regulations to be implemented for those which are going through the pension schemes bill, as I mentioned at the moment. We had a free conversation with an actuarial advisor. We sat back and congratulated ourselves on getting something for free last week, and they are suggesting that there will be a consultation on regulation changes to implement the changes from the consultation, which is likely to come out before the end of this calendar year. And then there is an expectation from central government that the regulations will be enforced from the 1st of April 26. So very short consultation period, very short implementation planning process. So we have a number of the key aspects that are in train. Pensions administration strategy, we've just reviewed. There's a new governance strategy, a training strategy, a conflict of interest policy that's required. And we're working on those throughout as part of our general work plan. But as soon as the regulations come in, I think we're going to be in a really pretty good place to get to where we need to be. But just a lot of work that will be continuing. So there will be a lot of updates coming over the next few months, and there may be ad hoc emails or informal meetings set up to discuss the consultation if that is required, but we'll make sure that everybody's involved wherever possible. So we're in a fairly good position, I think, for when this comes out. There's just a lot of work to do, and just bear with us while we keep reporting updates to you. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jo. Just on that point, it strikes me the risk to the actuaries serving locums and there aren't that many of them, is if what's consulted on isn't what they think is the common sense thing to do in the circumstances. It could be quite a difficult period to implement in 3 months. If obviously if it sort of takes people in the direction that people think we should need to go in the circumstances, that makes a lot of sense. Question, Jeff. You're mute.
Yeah. One worry I slightly have is the amalgamation of bringing other local authorities in pension schemes into LPPI is the ability of them to absorb them without losing focus on us as one of the original of the institution.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a really good point. And part of the discussions that we're having with LPPI at the moment is making sure that there is a seamless transition between 3 partners and 8 or 9. LPPI are looking at their internal resourcing to make sure that they've got sufficient capacity to develop. That is very much an LPPI issue that they need to deal with, but we are working very closely, and the interaction between the new partner funds in the new organisation is literally just starting, but we are working through that, and it is a concern that is being addressed. And at the informal committee meeting that was held on the 1st of October to discuss the risk and performance report, as Alan alluded to earlier, Richard Tomlinson from LPPI did state that they are taking very seriously the resourcing structure that they have to ensure that the service that they provide to their current and future partners is not detracted from, and that everybody continues to receive the high standard that we get.
Yes, Joe, clearly that's going to be a significant challenge for LPPI, and I think they recognise that. They know they won't need to increase their resources pro rata to the amount of money invested, but they certainly will need to increase their resources to deal with 2 or 3 times as many partners and presumably 2 or 3 times the amount of money. I mean, effectively, we're moving to what is a more normal situation that everybody, as I understand it, will be a shareholder. Hitherto, you'll be aware that the other 2 partners, Lancashire and London, have been shareholders, but we chose not to be when we joined, actually a little bit later than them, a few years back, sort of thing. And that sort of that anomalous position effectively is being adjusted and dealt with in this thing. I mean, and there's quite a lot of work to do in quite a short period of time, when we've also got an actuarial revaluation to process, which in itself is quite a lot of work in quite a short period of time. So I suspect the next few months are going to be a little bit interesting, a little bit challenging, and Joe's going to sort of well, be grateful for her weekends or something like that, I suspect. Any other points on that? Okay, shall we move on to item 7? That's just receiving information. I don't think there's anything we need to note or approve there. So item 7 is the finance review, the reports and accounts for the year ended in compliance with and receive the various things. Do you introducing this, Joe?
This is me also, Chair. Thank you very much. So the pension funds and draft annual report and accounts for the year ended March 25 was presented to the Pension Fund Committee on the 15th of September for adoption, subject to, or adoption acknowledging that there were a number of items missing. The reason it was taken to the Pension Fund Committee in September is that the statutory deadline for publication of the pension fund's annual report and accounts is the 1st of December each year. By historically not taking the draft annual report and accounts to the Pension Fund Committee until the 8th or 15th of December in the normal committee schedule means by default we are failing in meeting our statutory duty. so to publish by the 1st of December. So this year we've taken the annual report and accounts far earlier to committee, which means that there is still some information missing. Pension Fund Committee paper is provided as a background document to the paper that's in your agenda at agenda item 7 on page 73. So you can see the draft annual report and accounts that was presented for adoption. Pension Fund Committee approved those accounts subject to giving authority to myself, working with the Executive Director for Resources, to conclude the accounts, finalise them and conclude the external audit process. But the draft as presented to the draft as it is most available as close to the 1st of December will be published regardless of whether the external audit has been finished or not. It will be presented so that we're in compliance with our statutory deadline for publication. The information that I've presented to the board today, a very detailed CIPFA, Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy disclosure checklist, which ensures that the information that's provided in the pension fund's annual report and accounts is in compliance with the CIPFA Code of Practice on Local Authority Accounting in the United Kingdom. Apologies, it is a huge amount of information. It's very small. It's basically taking every section in the CIPFA Code of Practice that is relevant to pension fund accounts and making sure that the pension fund accounts include the right information and it's been considered. So whilst not expecting the pension board members to be auditors to check every cross-reference from the code to the pension fund's annual report and accounts, what I wanted to provide you here is assurance that Patrick O'Say, as the pension fund finance manager, has checked the accounts against the checklist. I then have reviewed what Patrick has checked to make sure that it is checked and it does work. And that information will be provided to the external auditors as part of their validation of the annual report and accounts to ensure it's been properly prepared in accordance with statutory guidance. So really this is providing the board with assurance that the pension fund's annual report and accounts have been properly prepared in advance of and subject to external audit confirmation. It's part of the governance process that the board has oversight of to ensure that proper processes of governance and administration are being followed for the fund. I'm very happy to take any questions, and if you ask me a detailed question about one of the references in the code, I will have to probably defer and go back and read it myself because it's a long time since I've looked at that in any great detail, but I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Joe. Jeff,
yes.
Your question.
Yes, forgive me. I only attend 4 meetings a year, so I don't understand the present situation. As previously told to us, the pension.
Jeff, unfortunately, you're breaking up. Do you want to try starting that again?
Start again. Yeah. Yeah. The pension. Yes, let me first of all say I only attend 4 meetings a year, so therefore, oh, you want me to write? You're asking me to write it down. A long time. It'll take a while.
You can try.
Okay. Don't worry.
Is there anything we can do? Or
Perhaps, Jeff, if you turn your camera off, that might ease your bandwidth.
Okay.
yeah, try that, Jeff.
Okay. Right. Apologies, I only attend 4 meetings a year, so therefore don't know what's going on with the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead's actual accounts. In previous years, we've had a backlog of not being able to publish these pension annual accounts because the accounts for the council itself have not been approved. Can you confirm what the situation is now?
Rachel's probably best to do that.
Yeah, I can come in there. So there's a weird quirk in local government that despite it being 2 separate audit opinions, the auditors will not issue an opinion on the pension fund accounts when they haven't also issued an opinion on the administering authority's own statement of accounts. That's an issue up and down the country, and there have been delays in council accounts publications and audits, again, up and down the country, which therefore also delays the issuing of opinions for pension fund accounts. There's been a lot of work done to clear that backlog. So here in Windsor and Maidenhead, there's a kind of scheme been put in place to deal with that backlog and issue kind of disclaimer opinions by deadlines. So for Windsor and Maidenhead, our 2024-25 draft accounts were published on time in June. There was a few amendments that we needed to make, but they are now with the auditors. So the auditors are doing their work. And we would hope to have that opinion issued by the next backstop date has been put in place early next year. So it is later than it would be in a normal period, but that we are getting back on track with that, and therefore we would hope to have the pension fund opinion issued at around the same time as the council. It will be slightly later than the December deadline for submission to the Scheme Advisory Board, but we are getting back to much closer timetable than we have done in previous years.
Can I come in then and just clarify? 23-4, we were running late because somebody had objected. Has that now been dealt with?
So for 23-24, the objection, I believe, has now been dealt with, but because of the backstop arrangements that were put in place for local authority accounts, the opinion wasn't issued by the auditors in time. That backstop, sure. So it was a backstop opinion rather than a full audit of the accounts.
Yeah. Okay, so we are wholly on 24-5 sort of thing with various disclaimers on various things. Joe, you're indicating.
Yes, there has been a push for quite some time, exactly the issue that Jeff's described, that delays to the pension fund accounts are caused by delays to, or any potential delay to the administering authorities account. Scheme Advisory Board for England and Wales have been pushing for quite some time for the separation of pension fund accounts from the administering authority accounts. That we believe is going through government at the moment and could be for the 26-27 accounts. So not this current financial year, but next financial year, there could be legislation that allows for the pension fund accounts to be published separately from the administering authority accounts. So that hopefully cuts that burden. Not quite sure how it's going to work yet. And how that will work. But as Rachel indicated, we do have separate audit fieldwork, we have separate audit opinions. The delays are because the pension fund accounts are subsumed within the administering authorities accounts. So hopefully legislation will come through very soon, which will allow the pension fund accounts to be published separately from and audited and opinioned on, separate from the RBWM accounts as such.
Is that A&A regs or primary? Do you know?
I'm not entirely sure, but it is already done in Wales. Wales already, although it's England and Wales legislation, Wales already separate pension fund accounts from the administering authority accounts. That feels as though it's accounts and audit regs then, so it's presumably going to have to happen when they next update the accounts and audit regs. I'm not entirely sure, but government have been pushing, Scheme Advisory Board have been pushing for it for quite some time. There is something that is going through, I think, government consultation at some point, more government consultation on changes to the LTPS. Yeah. Who knew?
Roll on the next review of the accounts and audit regs probably for that to happen. What's the standard chance of happening? Other comments? This is obviously quite a detailed thing, so if anybody's got comments they want to let feed in after this, fine. But as things sit today, are we expecting to be able to get this off as clean as possible by the deadline with the auditor? I mean, you've presumably given them all that you need to between you and Rachel, and as far as we know, they're working happily towards the deadline. Or... As
I understand it from talking to the pension fund external audit team, their fieldwork has already commenced. They've got all of the information they need. They have staff engaged up to the middle of December working on the pension funds audit. So the audit won't be concluded before the 1st of December. But as Rachel said, there is a backstop date of January, I think.
Right.
So we hope that the audit will be completed by the backstop date, so we'll have a clean audit opinion, but we are required to publish a draft subject to external audit by the 1st of December. We still have the 23-24 draft subject to external audit. We will have the 24-25 draft subject to external audit, because we haven't had the full audit opinion yet for 23-24. It's on its way, but we haven't actually had it yet. And so 24-25 will be published draft, but we would hope to conclude that far quicker than we've been able to conclude previous years by getting the audit opinion done by this backstop date.
Great. Thank you. So, well, if we hit the backstop date, that would be the first time in a few years. So that would be good news and good progress, given the I mean, and it's not just a Windsor and Maidenhead problem. It's affected a huge number of authorities, and most of the large councils that are in, well, presumably all the large councils are in Berkshire, because they can't then get their done because they've got all the pension fund information they need. Okay. I'm not seeing anyone else indicating on that, so I think we just note where we are there. I'm going to suggest we do the items in the order the papers came to us, so we'll do the risk management next and do the triennial valuation last.
Could we do the budget and business plan update as well?
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon, yeah.
That's fine. This is a very quick paper. Previously, members will be, or may not be aware, that the business plan and budget was created for the March committee meeting, and then essentially put on a shelf and reported back at the next March meeting to say we've done it and this is our new budget. So what I want to try and do in the interest of openness and transparency is to provide, this was supposed to be a mid-year report, which technically is mid-year, but we didn't have the finance information for the whole of the 6 months. So we've provided a 4-month actual versus budget income and expenditure account, and an update in the report on progress against the key business aims that were included in the budget and the business plan. We're in a very good position for both. There have been some delays in some of the priorities being addressed, primarily due to other business activities that have been going on, like from cloud and preparing for dashboards and consultations on pooling changes, for example. So we're in a very good position for the first report of progress against the business plan and budget update. We are also now in the process of starting our work on the 26-27 budget and business plan for the pension fund, looking at staffing structures and governance compliance statements and significant projects, which we're sharing with the team at the moment. The intention would be for a draft budget and business plan to be presented to the January board meeting for consideration, amendment and onward recommendation to pension fund committee in March 26. Happy to take any questions on this report or any comments.
Anyone? Julian's got a question.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the budget against actual report. I noticed the line that says net income expenditure. I think the brackets are in the wrong place.
Yes.
Julian, can you try the same trick as us and turn your camera off?
I'll turn the volume up. Hang on a moment.
Yeah, I'm in contact.
Can you hear me better?
Thames Water virtually daily. I've been in contact.
Can you hear me?
Over the weekend. I've had my phone on for the last.
It's not a volume problem, Julian.
Okay.
Hours, no one.
Can you hear me now?
Try speaking without the camera.
The issue we have is obviously.
I've turned my camera off. Can you hear me better now?
Point to the side.
So
I'm trying to get, they were supposed to come in last week, this weekend just gone.
Be asked to move elsewhere, or
They had my phone number, they had Hens's phone number, and nothing.
I can't go anywhere, but just let me, if you can hear me, I was just questioning whether the brackets were in the right place on the explanation. It says net income expenditure. Can you hear that?
just about?
Yes, I think so. If you're talking, Julian, on page 103 of the pack, where it says net brackets income slash
yes.
from dealings. The bracket shouldn't be around income, it should be around expenditure. Apologies, thank you for picking that up. I think it's because of a change in format that we've got between one spreadsheet and another. In some instances, income is shown as negative and expenditure is shown as a positive, so debits and credits. We've changed the format of the numbers, but we haven't changed the format of the text. So apologies, Julian, and thank you very much for picking that up.
Thank you. Julian, can you now mute? You definitely. You got. Thank you. That's cut the background noise. I appreciate you might have to be in an open office to do the meeting, but it means we can hear that others are talking as well. Thank you. Any other comments on that? I don't have any at the moment. Okay. I think we now can move to the, if we do risk management next.
Thank you. This is me again. An update on the risk register. Pretty much everything that you need to know to an extent is included in the covering report. I'm happy to take that as read and answer any questions that anybody may have.
Okay, this has been running a little while, so this is the sort of full review. Joe's suggesting changing to 3 risks, which has increased 1 residual red risk to leave us with a list of 6 residual red risks. And then we didn't take this in its full format to committee last month or whenever it was, but we are taking this to committee in January in this format. Were you trying to say something, Nikki?
No, I sneezed.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Bless you. So, comments, questions? When I looked at the table in section 2.9 of what we've got as our red risks, I said, okay, so we're concerned about having an experienced team. We know the issues there. We're concerned about a small number of people knowing a lot and relying on them, and we understand the point there. We're concerned about committee and board members having the knowledge and skills they need, and obviously we've done some work on that and got more to do on that. And we've got climate related and the cloud, which is diminishing in its and I find myself thinking, okay, but one of the elephants in the room for me and the fund is we're only 80% funded, but we don't carry that as one of our high risks. And I kind of understand how we've got here, but I find myself wondering, is that the right position to be in? And I offer that as an open question, not wanting to suggest any particular, but I find myself thinking, well, we know we're not as well funded as we ideally would like to be.
I think that you're absolutely right. That is a very key point for us. But we have an investment strategy statement, which we consider and we will be updating. There are a number of risks that are showing as investment risks. A lot of that is beyond our control, market influences. Yeah, sure. The only thing that we can really control to an extent is our strategic asset allocation. What is our risk appetite and that sort of thing. So that is something that we will be starting to look at following the triennial valuation results. The December Pension Fund Committee meeting will be receiving a health check report on the investment strategy as it stands at the moment. Once we've got the valuation results from assessing the liability side, that's when we'll start looking at what our investment strategy needs to be. Do we need to put more risk on the table? What's our strategy for improving the investment returns which will take the risk off of our employer contributions. There's two elements to generating those returns. So that work will commence in the new calendar year, with a view to an investment strategy statement review being concluded probably by third calendar quarter. But we'll work that through. I mean, to be fair, you know, there's, other than setting the investment strategy with the strategic asset allocation, a lot of it is out with our control. We are very conscious that the fund is still 86% funded, and that is likely to highlight, to be drawn out by the Government Actuaries Department's Section 13 report, which is their comparison of all funds and where there are risk areas. I think that the key point that we need to note is that we have, we've maintained our end date for deficit recovery at 2040. So we are not trying to extend and kick the problem down the table. We are looking at our strategic asset allocation, which is basically the key driver that we have, and that we are working with the fund actuaries to review the level of prudence and the level of certainty, whilst being very conscious of the fact that our employers are of the financial situation of our employers without compromising the financial situation of the fund as a whole. So we're trying to get that balance between contribution rates, investment returns. I'm not sure that it should, I think it underlines everything that we do, but I'm not entirely sure that there is anything that we can do to control and put it up as a red rated risk. I'm happy to be advised by others, obviously, if they think it should be a red rated risk. But I think the review of the investment strategy statement, which contains all of the investment risks, the review of the funding strategy statement, which contains all the funding risks, as long as we are carrying out our operations to do that, I don't feel necessarily that the risk needs to be a red risk on the register, but I am happy to be advised otherwise.
It was a reflection, and I'm not, there's nothing that I think you should be doing that I don't think we are trying to do. I was just making an observation that we're in this situation, we know we're in this situation, but other things land up being our highest risk, and I find myself asking, is that right? And I'm not sure I confidently answer that yes, and that's just a reflection. And probably I'll leave it with you to reflect on with Rachel. And sometimes I think we have to sort of accept in life not everything can be within our control, and we can still be doing as much as we think we can, and still accept there's some problems that may befall us out there. I sort of leave it like that. I mean, that's my thoughts about it. Does anyone strongly disagree with me, or strongly agree? Or Jeff?
Yeah, turn my camera off so that hopefully you can hear me. I'm with you, Alan, on it. I sit on the fence about it. I do feel that it is a risk. And in reality, the only thing that we could do about it was actually increase employers' contributions. I know that wouldn't go down well, but the reality is there is something you can do, but it's not something we want to do. I think it becomes less of an issue if we are seeing a trend that our deficit is being recovered, and in fact we're getting closer. If we're getting closer to 100%, and I'm not clear that we know with the actuary, the latest one, whether we are actually getting better or not. That's still out for consideration.
Thanks, Jess. Some of the latter parts of that broke up a bit, but I got the gist of what you were saying, and that's a sort of helpful reflection. I think we just leave that with officers to reflect on. I don't think it's necessarily saying we're calling for change, but we're just reflecting that's the position we're in, and some of us feel a little bit uneasy about it, and let's leave it at that. Thank you. If there are no other points on the risk register, we'll move on to the work plan.
Thank you. Very quickly, draft work plan setting out what should have been, what was, and what is hoped to be on current and future agenda meetings. What I'd like to sort of very informally at the moment discuss on page 119 of the pack, thoughts about revised meeting schedule for 26-27 financial year. As you're aware, we've separated the dates of the meetings of the pension board and the pension fund committee. I think that work is working, the separation is working quite well. However, I think we've not quite got the timing of when the pension board meeting should be effectively. At the moment, technically, we meet in the month after the pension fund committee meeting, but looking at next meeting's business, there's a long gap between when the board meets and when the committee meets. So there's potential for additional work to happen or additional activity to happen between board meeting and committee meeting, which then means that what the board has recommended may not necessarily be the most up to date for the committee. So what I'm proposing is that instead of meeting October, January, April, July, that we meet February, May. I'm really struggling with this. The month before the quarter months, so I'm really sorry.
While you struggle through this, can I ask Arthur to chair for a minute when I pop out?
So Arthur, I'm hoping you're okay to chair this while Alan snipped.
Yes.
So effectively, what I'm trying to do is move the meetings. So we still keep the same meetings, but move them from January to February effectively. So, and the timetable that I'm proposing, or the potential schedule, which obviously needs to be discussed with RBWM Democratic Services colleagues, is that effectively a committee meets on the third Monday of the quarter month, and the board meets on the fourth Monday of the previous month effectively. So it gives enough time for the board members to have their papers published, to have their meeting, for comments from the board to be included in the papers that are then published subsequently for the committee meeting. So it's a more up-to-date flow of information between board, taking account board's representations in the committee papers, and then the committee seeing the most up-to-date reflection. Very conscious, obviously, that a September meeting for the committee would mean an August meeting for the board, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to have a board meeting in August. But it might be that if the board meets, that we can make it in the first week in September rather than in the last week of August, if that would work. So really, in principle, the timetable that's on page 119 sets out the parameters by which the committee meetings and the board meetings would happen. There's a possible date set out, which would then enable people to have a think about whether they are available on the dates possibly for those board meetings, which are still subject to RBWM's full approval. But happy to take any thoughts on that. It's just making sure that there's enough time for new activities to be taken into account, but not too much time between board and committee for circumstances to have changed significantly.
As I'm back, shall I retake over? Thank you. Thanks, Joe, for explaining that. Comments from colleagues? Nikki.
Just to generalise, completely makes sense, and is pretty much where things were previously, trying to get these meetings immediately before the committee meeting, so we could actually do exactly what you just talked about there, Joe. So from that point of view, it makes absolute sense.
Well, and certainly ensuring that in the administration report we're seeing the same quarter, because I mean, effectively you've got to prepare it twice in any sort of cycle of two, and that's sort of not helpful to the two officers. I'm sure. Jeff.
Yeah. I'm quite happy to go with whatever is suggested. Frankly, it's an internal thing for the pension team to sort out rather than us, I think.
Jeff, that's broadly right, though. Of course, when we're going to meet, we do actually need to verify that we sufficient of us at least can be there, so the meeting is quorate and is capable of doing the business. And I wouldn't want to be planning to meet where lots of people knew they couldn't do the dates this far out, sort of thing, because that's sort of just not helpful to the governance. And I know last week we were having a discussion by correspondence between some of us about whether we meet the first day after the August bank holiday. I'm not sure where we are on that, and we'll pick that up outside the meeting. But Joe's going to say something.
Just to say, these are this is my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
This has not yet been discussed with Orrin Norris Brown as Head of Democratic Services, who is working on the corporate calendar, which will then be presented to full council. So this is a kind of an in principle, are you happy that I try and move these dates? I will then talk to Orrin about whether we can actually move these dates. And then at a future meeting, we will confirm what the actual dates that are in the calendar are. And if there are dates that members absolutely can't make, and we are running a risk of not being quorate, if you can identify those early enough, we can set them in stone early. But again, during the year, if there are issues with sufficient notice, we may be able to flex some of those calendar dates.
Sure, and certainly, making us aware of what dates we're thinking of as early as possible, I think, is the most helpful thing we can do in that scenario. And let's pick up the detail of that outside the meeting, because it's not a helpful thing to be trying to do five or six people's calendars several months in advance, sort of thing. Okay, any other comments on that? I think I had just one other observation. When we're looking at our terms of reference, it might also be helpful for us to be aware of the committee's terms of reference. Because obviously we're doing slightly different things. They're effectively taking the decisions and obviously doing a lot more on the investments than touches us. Let Joe finish writing. Then we move on to the slightly later circulated paper, and those who've had a chance to have a good look at this will know this is definitely in draft stage. There's clearly a section missing and lots of highlighted bits where there's more to come or still to be checked on the triennial valuation, but we're in the sort of 6 months leading to that at the end of March. So Joe, do you want to introduce this?
Yes, thank you. So this is introducing as Alan said, the draft funding strategy statement, which will need to be concluded as part of the triennial valuation and has to be approved no later than the 31st of March 2026. In January 25, the Scheme Advisory Board and MHCLG issued some guidance on the revised format and content of the funding strategy statement. And there is a requirement within that, as well as changing some of the content and changing some of the formatting, there is a requirement that the fund consults with its employers and their guarantors, which should include the Department for Education, who acts as guarantor for academy employers, on the revised funding strategy statement. So in order to get the funding strategy statement consulted upon, updated for results of consultation and approved by the Pension Fund Committee in March 26, we're intending to launch a consultation with our employers starting at the end of October and running to December. But at the start of that process, wanted to present the proposed draft, subject to still some updating and cross-referencing and assumptions changing, to the pension board to highlight that the funding strategy statement is being updated, to highlight that that there is requirement for a consultation, and that we've created an engagement plan which is presented at Appendix C to this report, and to highlight that the report the funding strategy statement has been drafted by Barnett Waddingham, Yes, there are a number of yellow highlights that need to be confirmed. Yes, there is a missing sentence at the end of page 11, which I had picked up, which Alan pointed out to me this morning. Thank you very much. But this is a draft that will be updated, reviewed and finalised before it is sent out to consultation. But this presentation to the pension board effectively opens the consultation period, welcomes your input, your thoughts, your comments. We will be working, fund officers will be working with the actuaries to finalise the yellow highlighted items, check cross-references between the funding strategy statement to the pensions administration strategy statement as you've approved today, confirming that the 3 policies that are now included as appendices to the funding strategy statement actually cross-reference and refer to our existing policies on those. Effectively start the consultation period. Appreciating that this came through very late, and I do apologise for that, but it's a working document and we're trying to get this through in the right timetable. If board members have any questions or comments today, I'm happy to take them. If you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but you have some comments and you'd like to do it and send comments through, I'd be grateful if you could get those to me sort of in the next couple of weeks so that I can finalise this and get it out to consultation, meaningful consultation with our employers, which will run from late October until mid-December, as I've said. And then with a view to the final version being presented to board on the 19th of January for onward recommendation to Pension Fund Committee in March 26 for publication by 31st of March 26 in accordance with regulations. Alongside this, sorry, just take a deep breath. The valuation results are in process. We have the whole fund results were presented to the September committee meeting. And the employer results are being calculated by Barnett Waddingham as we speak, with a view that they will be issued at the end of October. We have our annual meeting of the pension fund is being held on the 13th of November. Liam Drysdale from Barnett Waddingham will be attending that meeting to present an overview of the funding strategy statement and the valuation process. We have emailed out to all of our employers to offer individual meetings for those employers with the fund actuary on the afternoon of the 13th of November to discuss their individual results. So far, we've had 3 unitary authorities and 1 academy trust signed up for those meetings. Obviously, it's a very tight schedule. There's only so many half hours between 12:30 and 4 o'clock on that afternoon, but we're trying to fill up those slots as many as possible. Bracknell Forest is one of the ones that signed up. RBWM is one of the ones that signed up, and Slough Borough Council. So we're offering those. If employers can't make those meetings, then we may be able to schedule some different meetings with the actuary afterwards. But the process is, the triennial valuation is making good progress. The funding strategy statement is a key part of that. Wanted to engage with the board early enough to say, it's out there, please help me comment on it. The engagement plan is what we're planning to do. We will report back in January to say this is what we've done, this is the outcome of the consultation, this is the updated funding strategy statement for recommendation to Pension Fund Committee. Thank you very much. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Jo. I was reading through this and it struck me it's probably more helpful I turned some of my thoughts into an email to you rather than try and go through individual things here, because that's just going to take a lot of everybody's time. Just by way of general comment, it's helpful to hear 3 of the unitaries have asked for news. I presumably hope that the other 3 will avail themselves of that opportunity as well, and obviously others as they can. Just one sort of thought just to sort of just to say when there was sort of monitoring review and significant changes to the membership. I think Jeff mentioned a meeting or 3 ago that there was possibilities in the west of the county, things happening differently involving West Berkshire and 2 Oxfordshire districts. Clearly that would potentially lead to some significant changes in the membership, and I think it would be helpful that we had that on the radar, and they actually had that on the radar. Where that goes, I think, is in the hands of central government largely, as I understand the things, but there are also there's variances on that, because I know Reading has also put a proposal linked to that into the government in the same consultation. Apart from that, I think there are quite detailed points. I presume that once it got to the policies section, they were largely intended to be what our present policy was. And I tended to stop reading in detail because I know I've read the present policy sometime in the past and we were happy with it, and the committee was at the time.
So part of what we're doing in between today and when we launch the consultation is actually cross-referencing what's in the funding strategy statement, where it references to the pensions administration strategy statement, to make sure that A does actually say what B says it does, etc. And we're also cross-referencing the 3 policies at the annex to the policies that we currently have to highlight any change, and that will be part of the consultation process that says we're changing this format, we've provided this additional information, as well as changing this part, we've also changed this, this and this. But we will have to then consider whether we will have to take the update of the 3 policies as part of the standalone policy update, and either take away the standalone policy and refer it to the funding strategy statement, or alternatively take away the annexes to the funding strategy statement, put them as a link and link them to the main policy. That's part of the formatting process that we haven't quite got to yet. But absolutely valid points, and we are doing that cross-referencing. Our eyes are going slightly cross, looking at 2 versions of the very similar policy to try and track where the changes are, but noting also your comment earlier about highlighting where changes have been made. We will make sure that we document those and provide a key list that says paragraph 6 used to say this, it now says that. And
clearly the pensions admin strategy needs to be the one we've seen today, and hopefully committee is going to approve in December, sort of thing.
What we're hoping is that there are no changes to the pensions administration. We absolutely highlighted as following the review of the funding strategy statement, we've identified that we need to have an additional statement in the pension admin strategy, and we will highlight that as part of the consultation process, and we'll bring that to board's attention.
Good. Well, good luck to employers responding to this, and good luck to you if you get a large response. Well, be careful what you wish for, Joe. Okay, are there any further comments on that? In that case, I think that concludes everything we need to do. Nobody's violently shaking their head at me or saying otherwise. So we next meet in January.
The next meeting is on the 19th of January, I believe it's 19th. Alan, could I just say, this is, we will be losing Nikki from our board meetings after today. Nikki, you've been an invaluable member of the pension board. Really very much appreciated working with you. Your contributions have been exceptional. Thank you so very much for your help and support. And also, Kevin, I hope today hasn't put you off. Very much looking forward to working with you on this. Thank you.
And in connection with that, could I have a delegation in consultation with Joe and Kevin to make him at least a substitute member ahead of the 19th of January meeting, so he can formally be on the list of papers?
We can accept Nikki's resignation now and Kevin's appointment to the board as of today, if you're happy to do that.
You're happy with that, Kevin? Is there anybody, I mean, just for the benefit of those on the street, Kevin in the past used to work at Reading when I was there, and I think that was his first job in local government, as far as I know, because he'd worked in the private sector before that sort of thing. So I've known him for quite a few years. So I'd be happy with him joining the board. So if everybody else is happy, that sort of sorts the employer rep until Arthur's plans come to fruition, all being well, next summer. Okay, thank you. Well, I suppose I wish you a happy Christmas. Thank Nikki for your involvement as Joe has done, and also note the board's thanks to the member of staff who's, I think you said, retiring at Christmas, the end of the year, sort of thing. Can we pass our thanks to there? Because everything in this organisation depends upon having the staff in place, knowing what they're doing and doing it reasonably well most of the time. And all the evidence I've seen at this board over the years is that's what happens. And we occasionally get some nice comments from our members that reflect that. Thank you. Wish everyone a happy Christmas when it comes.